Week 3 of competition was full of upsets and full of some great games, so let's get into it. If you enjoy, drop a like on the video, hit subscribe for more content similar, and drop in the comments what your favourite game was of Week 3. Starting off in NAL, DarkZero took Soniqs to a strong map of theirs in Consulate, in a great competitive game with DZ arguably being the underdog and winning 8-6. DZ pulled off some lovely rush plays in this game, and ex-DZ player Skies on the desk spoke about how when they picked up NJR, they thought they were getting one of those ultra aggressive players, but they were wrong, so they picked up Pambazoo to try again, and he was front and centre in their sporadic aggression throughout the game, sneaking through the gaps in their defense and picking up big impact kills. But the ability of players like Grixor on defense being able to survive to the final execute gave them a good 4-2 defensive half on an often attacker-sided Consulate, and after a rough first site rotation on attack, they adjusted nicely the second time round on sites like Teller's Archives, not playing into DarkZero setups and making sure they secured overtime, as DZ took a round themselves, leaving the score at 6-6. Eclipse and Hyper specifically had just been heating up over the game, and by the time it was 7-6, Eclipse was at full form as he had a huge round for his team, essentially saving the round, killing a hidden vigil that had been misdroned on the top floor, following it up with a few more kills to close the game out 8-6. Mirage took one of the big upsets of the week as they closed out favourites TSM in a really good 8-6 matchup. This game was a literal frag fest as we saw TSM collect so many grenade kills, effectively displacing Mirage players out of power positions, but the Mirage players themselves did well on entry as they transitioned onto attack, with Nyx having one of his better games yet on entry, doing a good job backed by Dreams droning to isolate a roaming TSM player and hitting those important headshots as they swing. And as I mentioned, it was probably Nyx's best game on IGL entry yet, being so effective on collecting those opening kills, along with Benji backing him up with a 13 kill game of his own. You could see it on the TSM player cams after they died, they just looked baffled at being picked off from all sorts of deep angles. Along with Quartz and Loading having some really big impact plays, Mirage almost closed the game out 7-5 in regulation, but a small lapse of concentration saw Mirage have to go to overtime, but they pulled away in OT, Quartz breaking the streak on attacking favour, picking up a big nitro opener onto Bolo on their defence, and it was enough as their final attack continued to run like a well-oiled machine, picking off the TSM players one by one till it was just Charla left to take down multiple Mirage players, and it was too much for him as Loading picked up the final kill, securing them the upset 8-6 win against TSM. On our second playday, the number 1 team of last split took on the runners-up as OXG faced up against the Soniqs with SQ winning 7-3. There was good time waste on the roam from Soniqs, with Guns Up being able to punish OXG as they walked into site to plant from vertical angles, whether they tried to clear it or rush onto site. It wasn't working as OXG found themselves 1-5 down on an attacker-sided Chalet, moving on to defense. And this time Soniqs rushed the bar similar to OXG, but for them it was successful, now on match point. OXG actually rebounded well, picking up a few rounds, but it was too little too late with the round differential, and against a talented roster like Soniqs, they'll back themselves to win at least one round in 5 attempts, and they did as another bar defense fell victim to the Soniqs attack, closing it out 7-3 and handing OXG their second rough loss on Chalet in a row. In one of the most anticipated matches of the stage due to both teams' form, we saw TSM take on SSG on Chalet, a really strong map for both, as SSG handed TSM their second loss in a row as they beat them 7-2. I had a feeling it was going to be a really great game when they went to Chalet. Both teams have been so efficient on this map, and to me have helped shape the meta of what Chalet is. And Hot and Cold was showing he would turn up for the big games too on his new roster as he picked up a pretty iconic 4K on Mozzie in round 1. SSG were truly unbelievable when it came to their setups here against a very strategically competent team in the likes of TSM, but they just seemed stuck in the mid round at being able to dismantle the SSG setups, and losing the opening pick didn't help them as they struggled to a 2-4 half after finding some form in the last round. Another 4K from Hot and Cold put SSG at 5-2, followed by a deadly 1v2 clutch on attack, shut down TSM in an impressive way as Hot and Cold just tore them apart, going 17-4 backed by good enough performances by his teammates, winning 7-2. Over to Europe, we had a match from one of the best rivalries in all of Siege as BDS looked to regain their top spot from NAVI in a big match for the Frenchmen against G2, but were unable to get a win over the Lion, losing 4-7. I was expecting Brede, Citizen and Shaiko to be the main players in this game, but in the first half Citizen was getting shut down a lot, and it was actually an informed Kayak, Shaiko and Virtue who were getting the important kills for their teams. There was good prep from BDS to counter Citizen's route play as he was so effective with it in the last few games against Secret, but some misplays and flat pushes pushes left BDS with only 2 rounds in a 2-4 attacking split, but for a team like BDS it was looking to be enough, as early in the second half on defense they disrupted G2, burning loads of time as they always do by having skilled gunners like Renshiro and Shaiko holding power positions. But G2 had an answer for this clearly before the game, as they stuck the Monty every round, and it started to make things difficult for BDS as G2 played more effectively around it and found themselves on match point. And in the last round they baited BDS again with a 6 pick off the Monty to Capitao, negating Renshiro's Legion and still being able to clear the players in rafters, and it was enough as G2 surprised many people, beating BDS 7-4. I just want to say big up to Hungry, playing Monty, Capitao, Ying, like what an unselfish flex player, just doing what his team needs and effectively too. I strive personally to be a player like that can do anything the team needs, and players like this can be super valuable if they truly can do many roles at an effective level. We saw a really great game between Vitality and Rogue as Vitality narrowly closed them out 8-7 in overtime. There was really good mid-round adaptation from Rogue to bounce back from mistakes in their early round to figure out different ways to collect that round instead of the original plan when it wasn't working, but Vitality found themselves in a 3-3 split looking for early picks, then playing well behind Utility with the man advantage. Switching sides, no team could get a clean break to close the game out in regulation, and we found ourselves at overtime, and with that, max overtime, but Vitality's ability to be able to collect the opening pick and make space with 2 successful attacking rounds was the slim difference between them being picked out of an extra point and collecting those 2 points themselves, which they did in an 8-7 game. Definitely one of the best matches of the stage so far. And the following Playday in EU was a frag party as we saw multiple players drop huge high kill performances across different teams. The first game I want to get into though was Unknights versus G2, as Unknights put in a really solid performance, just about losing 7-8 to G2, which I think honestly is a very respectable showing for them. They did a good job at countering G2's excellent clubhouse games in the last few Playdays, as Chaoxis on support and Blaz on a fragging role once again showed their ability on clubhouse. They bounced back from a 0-4 scoreline, bringing the match all the way to overtime. I was really impressed with their ability to locate Citizens vault cams on attack, and on defense their ability to shut down Hungry, one of the best Monty players in the world. They weren't playing scared, and I think this is when we see the best version of Unknights, confidence to take their gunfights and disrupt their enemy's strategy. The last round couldn't have been any closer, but the late round shot call from G2 to flood the site and go for kills just worked in their favour, with Yonka having a big final round with the 4K to close the game out 8-7. Big up to Unknights though for putting in the prep, and commiserations for them for just about losing out on that extra point, and GG's to G2 also for getting it over the line. And the final game I wanted to get into in EU was NAVI vs Vitality, as Vitality put on a great showing, closing out NAVI 7-1 dominantly. Vitality were clutching up this game, 2v5s, post-plant retakes, all sorts, and this is impressive against a very talented team of gunners in the likes of NAVI, who can easily punish you, especially with the trade potential when you're lagging in manpower or map control. But P4 was trying to follow in Shaiko's footsteps of the game he'd had in the same Playday, being 11-1 on Clubhouse after 4 rounds. P4 is one of those few players in the world where if he's having one of these type of games, he's so hard to shut down, and his unpredictability can leave the opposing team frustrated and with their pants down and start to lose round after round and give up unnecessary kills, as Vitality were flawless, 6-0 after their defensive half. NAVI found 1 round, but a semi-successful rush from Vitality to blue was enough to create a 3v3, and guess what? P4 was still alive, and even with low HP, found 2 beautiful kills and left NAVI in a 1v2, which they couldn't clutch as the ace collected the final kill and stomped NAVI 7-1. Massive respect to Vitality's performance here. And moving into BR6, we had some real juicy games in these 2 Playdays. SANTOS gave Team 1 a good run for their money, narrowly losing 5-7 to Alamau and the boys. I think SANTOS had a pretty solid performance and even pretty good objective play considering the map was Coastline, with Cons getting a few defusers down throughout the game, but I honestly think that a map like Coastline plays into the favour of players like Alamau and KDS who thrive in the chaos, as Alamau did a good job on Sophia and Twitch picking up the opening kill, going +4 on entry, and it was the same across the whole team, with only 1 player on Team 1 being negative on entry compared to SANTOS, who had 3 of their 5 players negative on entry, specifically Destiny unfortunately being -6 on a fragging Sophia Melusi role, and you can't fight from behind forever, as players like Lagonis cleaned up the remaining SANTOS players, ending the game for Team 1 with a 7-5 victory. Similar to the TSM Mirage game, we saw another one of the big upsets of the stage, as Black Dragons took down the world champions Ninjas in Pyjamas in a close 8-6 win on Villa. Patoxy had an excellent map here, playing on the aggressive Sophia and Jaeger roles, and I feel like against NiP, your fraggers have to be able to have a strong performance, as giving players like Pino and Muzi too much space will just allow them to run over you and box you in. Pytoxy didn't have any crazy clutches or aces and so on, but he had multiple 2Ks and single impact kills, and even with a good performance from Psycho and Muzi, BD stopped NiP from running away with entry kills, overall matching them evenly, both teams having 3 entries each. And in the final round, an important entry from Perez onto the mute of Pino gave them the man advantage, as BD carefully picked off the rest of the NiP players, being positioned well to trade the kills out all the way to a round win and an 8-6 victory. And Black Dragons kept up the great form, once again showing that it isn't just the Brazilian teams that were at the 6 Invitational that are a force to be reckoned with, but all of them, as they closed down Furia 7-4. Pytoxy picked up his second MVP performance 2 Playdays in a row, this time with some good clutches thrown in there too, on a well-rounded performance, doing his job not only on fragging roles like Aruni and Belusi, but also on key support roles like Maverick that require you to do your job with utility or risk completely ruining your team's attack strategy. BD went +7 on entry with no player being negative on that stat, compared to Furia with not one player being positive on entry, left Furia starved for kills and room to be able to maneuver around the map. Live got the diffuser down in the last round, as a post plant saw them head to a 7-4 dub. And talking of Black Dragons, Ninjas in Pyjamas rebounded from their 6-8 loss to them in the previous playday very well, decisively shutting down FaZe 7-3 on Clubhouse. And similar to BDS, what I love about both these teams is that each player is able to put the team on their back and show up if one of their usual stars is lagging behind. Pino, for example, had quite an average game for his standards, so Psycho was able to step up for him and be the difference himself. Kamikaze also had a great game, and on a map like Clubhouse, if your support player can be effective, it can be the difference between a win and a loss. Add on to that FaZe weren't able to find a single entry compared to NiP's 4 opening kills, and you give yourself a good chance at winning rounds on Clubhouse, as it's a lot easier to execute with a man advantage and have less worries about plant denial or having so many angles to watch defenders swing from, along with NiP being so effective as we know with that opening kill, as this led NiP to quite comfortably close this game out with a near flawless round on a cash attack, closing the game out 7-3 and pushing them back up the standings in the BR6. What were your favourite games of the week? Let me know in the comments down below. I think personally mine had to be the Mirage TSM game, as it was just so fun to watch and it really was close, and props to both of those teams, but yeah, I love that one. I hope you've been enjoying the last few playdays, and I'll see you at the end of this week's competition. Smash a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.